Ford has been building cars since 1903. Over 120 years. The Mustang, the GT40, the Model T, the F-150. Names that don't just live in automotive history, they live in the American imagination. But a company that large and that old doesn't just produce icons. It produces outliers, experiments, machines built for one specific purpose that the market never understood. Race cars that became road cars nobody bought. Road cars that became race cars too dangerous to exist. Drag strip specials built in numbers so small that finding one today is less likely than finding a Fabergé egg in a swap meet. This is the story of 10 Fords that Ford built and the world forgot. Not because they weren't good enough. In most cases, because they were too much. Number 10, the 1966 Ford Fairlane 500 R-Code. Say rare Ford muscle to most enthusiasts and they jump to Boss Mustangs, Shelby Cobras, Cobra Jets. That's the tragedy of the R-Code right there. What Ford built in mid-1966 was by any measure one of the most extreme factory drag cars of the entire muscle car era. Almost nobody talks about it. The Fairlane 500 was Ford's sensible midsize, the car your uncle bought because it fit the family. Ford's engineers asked what would happen if they dropped a 427 cubic inch side oiler V8 into it. The same 427 winning at Le Mans. The same engine in the Shelby Cobra 427. Dual Holley 4-barrel carburetors. 425 horsepower. 480 pound-feet of torque, on par with Mopar's 426 Hemi, in a family car. Ford needed 50 built to qualify for NASCAR. They managed 57, every one in Wimbledon white, black interior, no radio, no power steering, bench seat, fiberglass hood to save weight. A $1,725 engine option on a $2,378 car pushed the sticker to $4,501, nearly double the base price. Casting issues at the Atlanta engine plant killed any chance of building more. Today, roughly 25 of the 57 survive. One sold in 2022 for $296,000. It looked almost identical to a base Fairlane. That was the entire point. Number 9, the Ford Escort RS-1700T. Before the RS-200 existed, there was a ghost. Ford spent years developing the RS-1700T, a turbocharged rear-wheel drive rally car based on the Mk3 Escort, to replace the legendary Mk2 in Group B. They downsized the engine to 1,700, tested, refined. Then in 1983, with development still struggling and Audi's Quattro rewriting every assumption about what all-wheel drive could do to a rally stage, Ford's motorsport director Stuart Turner made the call. The RS-1700T was canceled, not suspended, killed, every prototype destroyed. The molds scrapped. Years of engineering investment written off. Turner's logic was straightforward. Building a rear-wheel drive rally car in Audi's new world wasn't a competitive strategy, it was denial. He was right. But the RS-1700T paid the price. The car that existed long enough to be photographed and tested, then was unmade. One of the most complete non-cars in motorsport history. Number 8. The Ford RS-200. What came from the RS-1700T's ashes was the polar opposite. Ford started from zero, no production car donor, no shared platform. They hired F1 chassis designer Tony Southgate and F1 engineer John Wheeler, commissioned gear for the body, and built a mid-engine all-wheel drive machine from scratch. Aluminum honeycomb monocoque chassis, fiberglass body, Kevlar on the race cars, gearbox mounted at the front to optimize weight distribution. The 1.8-liter Cosworth bit engine made 250 horsepower in road trim, up to 450 in competition. Ford contracted Reliant, yes, the Reliant Robin Company, to assemble the 200 road cars required for homologation. The last one rolled off the line in January 1986. Group B was banned by the end of that same year following a string of fatal accidents, including one involving an RS-200 in Portugal that killed 3 spectators. The RS-200 competed for exactly one season. Best finish, 3rd in Sweden. Only 152 of the 200 planned cars were completed. An Evolution variant, one of 24, with a 2-liter engine making around 580 horsepower, held the 0-60 Guinness World Record at 3.07 seconds for 12 consecutive years. Ford has spent an estimated $10 million building the most advanced car on Earth for a racing class that ceased to exist. A standard RS200 today, $250,000 to $400,000. An Evolution, over $1 million. Number 7. The Ford Mustang McLaren M81. In 1980, Ford needed to make the Fox body Mustang exciting again. Emissions regulations and the fuel crisis had killed the big V8s. What remained was a 2.3-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, making 131 horsepower. Essentially the same output as the strangled V8 with worse character. Ford called McLaren, not the supercar brand, McLaren engines. The American operation, founded by Bruce McLaren himself, focused on IndyCar racing. McLaren's team took each 2.3-liter apart by hand, deburred the components, blueprinted everything, and rebuilt it. 175 horsepower. Wide IMSA-style fender flares, Biebs wheels, adjustable Coney suspension, Recaro seats, a bolt and roll bar. 7 of the 10 cars finished in McLaren's bittersweet orange. It was planned for 249 examples. It was the first ever product from what became Ford's Special Vehicle Operations Division. Ford built 10. Because the price was $25,000 in 1980, nearly $100,000 today, and for that money a buyer could almost reach a Ferrari 308. The rarest Mustang Ford ever sold the public. The prototype, 556 miles on the clock, sold for $51,000 in 2024. The car McLaren had, built to prove the future of American performance, worth about the same as a lightly used pickup truck. If you look at a car like the M81 and feel something closer to loss than curiosity, the feeling of a great idea arriving at exactly the wrong moment, subscribe right now. That territory is exactly where we live. The cars that should have mattered, the reasons they did not, and the history no manufacturer wants to admit, but no enthusiast can stop thinking about. Number 6. The Ford GT70. In the early 1970s, Ford's European division wanted a tarmac rally car, something to compete with the Porsche 911 and the Alpine A110. What they built was the GT70, a mid-engine, fiberglass-bodied coupe with a steel backbone chassis, double wishbones all around, and a Ford Beta 4-cylinder in various states of tune. Light, compact, genuinely purposeful. On paper, exactly what Ford needed for Group 4 rallying. In practice, too expensive to develop, too complex for stage conditions, and too far removed from any Ford road car to justify the budget. 6 prototypes were built. Then the program was canceled. None ever raced competitively. The cars went into storage and private collections and the footnotes of automotive history. The GT70 is Ford's most complete answer to a question Ford ultimately decided not to ask, which makes it exactly the kind of thing this list exists to tell you about. Number 5. The Ford Bronco Centurion. Ford didn't build this one. Centurion Vehicles of White Pigeon, Michigan built it, using genuine Ford Bronco bodies and F-Series chassis, converting them into 4-door long wheelbase SUVs a full decade before Ford itself produced anything similar. Centurion extended the 2-door Bronco body, added rear doors and a cargo section, mounted it on an F-Series crew cab frame, and sold the result as the Centurion Classic. They ran this operation for 9 years until the Ford Expedition arrived in 1996 and made the conversion unnecessary. The trucks cost significantly more than a stock Bronco, weren't officially Ford products despite wearing Ford badges and using Ford powertrains, and were sold through some Ford dealers. Hundreds were converted. Most have been worn out or modified beyond recognition. Finding one is a rare event. Finding one that most Ford enthusiasts have heard of is rarer still. because it sits in the strange category of being too real to be a concept car and too unofficial to be a legend. Number 4. The Ford Falcon XC Cobra. Australia 1978, the XC Falcon Coupe, two-door version of Ford's best-selling Australian family car, had been a sales disaster. Ford Australia found itself sitting on hundreds of unsold coupe bodies. Their solution was characteristically direct: fit a 5.0-liter V8, add a handling package, paint them white with blue racing stripes in Ford's motorsport livery, and call it the Cobra. They built 400. They sold all 400 almost immediately. The XC Falcon Cobra is now one of the most sought-after classics in Australian automotive history, commanding serious auction money and appearing at shows with near religious reverence. Outside Australia, almost nobody has heard of it. A cult object for a specific geography, the kind of car that defines what muscle means in a country where muscle took a different shape than it did in Detroit. Number 3. The Ford Durango. Not the Dodge. A completely different vehicle that predates the Dodge Durango by over a decade and is almost entirely unknown today. In the early 1980s, a Texas converter took the Ford Fairmont Futura, compact, rear drive, entirely ordinary, and converted it into a pickup truck. They called it the Durango. Ford blessed it, offered it through select dealers, briefly marketed it as a factory option. It competed against the Chevy El Camino and similar car-based trucks. The problem: the conversion cost enough that the Durango was significantly more expensive than the competition without offering any meaningful advantage. Sales were minimal. The program died. Surviving examples are scattered and largely unrecognized, owned by people who found one and couldn't quite believe what they were looking at. A Ford pickup that was never officially a Ford pickup, built on a car platform by a company that wasn't Ford, sold through Ford dealers, priced out of its own market, and then forgotten so completely that most Ford historians treat it as a rumor. Number 2. The Ford Escort RS Cosworth. Famous in Britain and Europe. The car rallying made legendary: 220 turbocharged horsepower through all 4 wheels, a Cosworth IBE engine that rewrote what a small car could do, a whale-tail spoiler so enormous it required its own apology, a reputation on loose surface stages that never fully faded. But here's what the legend obscures. Ford built the road version to homologate the race car. They needed to sell 2,500 to the public, barely enough to qualify. The cars that reached private buyers in 1992 cost so much, required such specialist maintenance, and were stolen at such catastrophic rates, the most stolen car in Britain for a period, that many were laid up, exported, or simply lost. The result is a vehicle simultaneously famous and rare, everywhere in rallying, almost nowhere in private garages, a legend with very few witnesses. Number 1. The Ford Mustang V10. This is the one that got away. In the early 2000s, a small group of Ford engineers, working on their own time with almost no budget and no official authorization, built a Mustang with a V10 engine. Not the 8-liter truck V10 Ford already made. That engine's tall deck couldn't fit the Mustang's hood. Instead, they took 2 4.6-liter V8 blocks and built an entirely new V10 from first principles, using existing components wherever the zero budget allowed. The engine fit. It made power numbers nobody at Ford had sanctioned a Mustang to produce. The car ran. It was tested. By all accounts of the engineers who drove it, it was extraordinary. Then it was shelved. The official reason: no committed business case. The unofficial reality, understood by everyone involved: a V10 Mustang would cannibalize demand for the Cobra, Ford's own V8 flagship. The test mule exists. It's been photographed. The engineers who built it have talked about it in interviews. A car that ran, that worked, that proved something real, put in a room and never seen again. Ford built its own competition and locked it away. What would have happened if they'd released it is one of the genuinely unanswerable questions in American performance car history. Ford has been building cars for over 120 years. The public version of that history is the Mustang, the GT40, the F-150. But underneath those legends, in the forgotten corners of Ford's engineering archives, are the ones that didn't make it. The canceled rally cars, the 10-unit McLaren partnerships, the 57-unit drag specials, the V10 test mules that ran perfectly and were quietly locked away, the ones too expensive, too early, too dangerous, or too competitive with something Ford already sold. The company that gave you the Mustang also sold a Mustang that only 10 people bought. It built a rally car that competed for one season before the series was abolished. It approved a pickup truck that wasn't a truck, built by a company that wasn't Ford, priced out of its own market. It killed a V10 to protect a V8. That is not a company playing it safe. That is a company that kept reaching, kept building things it had no obvious reason to build, and occasionally failed in ways more interesting than most manufacturers' successes. If you feel like the cars that got buried deserve as much attention as the ones that became legends, subscribe. This is where those stories live. And we're not close to running out of them.